MMC crew. We're excited to be here again. This is our second show. And today we are going to be discussing all the written addresses of the parties. My name is Nelo. I'm going to I have, my other 1MMC crew members here. I'm going to pass the mic over to them so that they can all introduce themselves as well.
All right. Hey guys, it's well-meaning Nigerian, so thank you for coming.
Yeah, well-meaning. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Okay, did you people hear me introduce myself?
We had you. You said you are well-meaning Nigeria. We had you.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right. We'll just do it very brief intros. After myself, I think Ngozi will go, then Mr. Tony, then Anka Dede. My name is UC Maxwell. And of course, a member of the 1MMC. And welcome to the Sunday event once again. Ngozi, over to you.
All right. Thanks, everyone, for joining us today. It's Ngozi, and thanks for coming to the 1 million match crew event. Thank you.
1MMC.
Hi, everyone. Who's going?
Mr. Tony, go ahead. Ngozi, why do we have lumpkins here? All right, go ahead, Mr. Tony.
Hi, everyone.
It's just that it was supposed to be for the crew members for now. Yes, but go ahead, Mr. Tony.
Yeah, hi, everyone. This is Tony from the 1MMC crew. And thank you so much for joining us today again. Looking forward to interesting exchange of information. And hopefully, by the time we're done, we would have been able to advance our knowledge base a little bit further. Thank you so much for joining us today. Back to you, Nello.
And this is Anka Dede. Anka Dede is my Twitter handle name. I'm glad we are having this, our second edition, and we can only grow from here. Thank you all for joining.
All right. Thank you guys so much. I'm looking forward to a very robust conversation. We have our in-house Leonard Silk, UC Maxwell, to really, break down these addresses. And we have, of course, he's not a Leonard Silk, but he has he sleeps, eats, drinks, these addresses. We have well-meaning. So, guys, if you have any question, please drop them in the chat box and we will be answering the questions. So, for today's show, we are basically going to be looking at a few things. For the first one, Mr. Rob, please go ahead and, there was this question you asked about statute of limitation. I'd like you to take that question again, and then we can all answer the questions. We can have well-meaning or UC Maxwell answer the question. Please go ahead.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Nello. So I have a question relating to an angle from the entire petition and the response from Tinubu, APC, and co. I think the question would help us to finally understand the issue relating to statute of limitations in this case. So there has been conflicting information. Pardon me if it's a little loud behind me. I'm at a football game. So recently, there have been conflicting information regarding the statute of limitation relating to the forfeiture there. Now, I would like to know if the statute of if there is generally a statute of limitation on it, right? According to the section 137, I believe it's 1A, B, C, or D. But we have the learned seal here, to help me understand that as well as our listeners. Can you help us? I hope that question came across well, UC Maxwell.
Yes, it did. And this is where I'll be needing my very good friend, who will be in Nigeria. Please, on your app, kindly put up the 1999 Constitution also, because these are some, of course, I trust you. So well-meaning, yeah, a boss. Okay, so basically, when you talk about limitations within the provisions of a law, it means that it sets a time frame for which something can be done or for which something may not be done anymore. When you look at the provisions of section, you can still zoom in more, well-meaning. When you look at the provisions of section 137, subsection 1, paragraph E, particularly, you would see that it creates a limitation period.
You see, Maxwell, please give me a second.
I can hear you.
I'm looking at our screen on YouTube, and well-meaning your screen is not highlighted.
Fixed it.
Okay, all right, please go ahead.
So, okay, thank you for that. So, paragraph E creates the limitation for which you can bring a suit against a person who is vying for the office of presidency. It sets it that the provision reads, within a period of less than 10 years before the date of the election to the office of president, he has been convicted and sentenced for an offense involving dishonesty or has been found guilty of the contravention of the code of conduct. Now, there are two things here. Either the case is one relating to dishonesty or one relating to code of conduct, that such a person has been convicted and sentenced. So here, it envisages a conviction and sentence. It envisages a conviction and sentence to a person for an offense involving dishonesty and then a violation of the code of conduct principles. So, but paragraph E, meaning that if a person has been sentenced for 10 years, within this, no, not for 10 years. If a person is sentenced today, the person cannot vie for the office of presidency except a 10 years period has passed. If you have been convicted and sentenced today for either dishonesty or for violating the code of conduct, laws, it means that you cannot vie for the office of presidency until 10 years period has passed. However, it is important to note that the petition of both Labour Party and the PDP are not hinged on the provisions of section 137 sub 1 paragraph E, but they are hinged on section 137 sub 1 paragraph D, which provides that, this particular sentence of imprisonment or fine, there is no limitation period to it. So it could be either a sentence or fine in relation to an offense of dishonesty or fraud or whatever name so called. It is also important, before I finalize answering the question, that all the items listed under section 137 sub 1 are all stand-alone items. When I say stand-alone, it means that as a person vying for the office of presidency, if you violate one of the items, it suffices to stop you from vying for the office. So you must not violate D and E before you'll be stopped. If a word catches you under any of the item, you will be stopped by virtue of the law. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you so much. Mr. Tony, did you get that?
Absolutely. I got that. That was very, very informative. Thank you so much, UC Maxwell. I'm good for now. Thank you, Nello. Back to you.
So then, right. Sorry.
Yes.
Let me just come in here to further, but not really buttress, but to point out, from what UC rightly explained, to point out from our petition, and by our petition, I mean the Labour Party petition, where, it was outrightly stated, right, that this particular petition was not based on, so if you see the screen I'm in and you see the part that I highlighted here, like Justin Maxwell just explained that E has some kind of statute of limitation, but D doesn't. So you would see rightly here that it is written that the petitioner's case is not based on section 1371E, but rather on provisions of Section 1371D of the 1999 Constitution. So, and a word further to, because in APC's, or rather in Tinubu's written address, they are trying to pretend, I don't know if I can say that, but they are trying to make it look as if they didn't see D, but they were making reference to it. So the petitioners, in person of like Peter Obi and LP, had to draw their attention back. So thank you.
All right, thank you. It's interesting that you used the word pretend, because I was just about asking the same thing. You see, Maxwell, is this a practice in court to act like, is this an attempt to confuse the judges, or is this an attempt to confuse the petitioners, or is this an attempt to confuse the judges? I don't know, because obviously these guys, they know the right thing. So why are they going this route? Is this something that you lawyers do? You see, Maxwell.
I feel like this is an attack on my person and on the profession. But then to simply answer your question, every lawyer wants to win the case for their client. Very, very important, because the fees is being paid by the client. But away from that, you would recognize that paragraph E of that provision makes sure that the person of Bola Ahmed Tinubu is not, in defaulting of the section, because the case against him, the $460,000 forfeiture, is close to 30 years, or approximately 30 years. So it means that if they hide under paragraph E, the person of Bola Ahmed Tinubu will not be made subject to that provision. He will not be disqualified because it has exceeded 10 years. So they were trying to be smart by, arguing in line with paragraph E without, needing to draw the attention or argue against paragraph D. But in effect, the only thing that they could do in arguing against paragraph D was to create the impression that the forfeiture is not a fine. That is what they tried to do. Because when you look at paragraph D properly, you will see that it envisages that such sentence will be either for imprisonment or for fine. So they are trying to show that he was not imprisoned and a forfeiture is not a fine and it is a civil forfeiture. That is the way that they used to play their game or argue their case, before the court.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you. All right. Next, we are going to be looking at one thing that, I found very interesting in the whole case again is looking at, APC, sorry, not APC, but the second and the third respondent, that's Tinubu and Shettima. The 25%, in Abuja was caused such a huge uproar, on the timeline this week, because in their response, they tried to make it look like, Abuja is like the 37th state, and so the 2/3 they have, gotten their 2/3. And I know that in LP's response as well, they also, they did something there. I haven't really had time to read LP's response, but I know they did something there to kind of bury that argument. I would really like for you guys, whoever is ready between you or well-meaning to, take us through Tinubu Shettima's argument on the 25% and then LP's response on the 25% as well. Thank you. Well-meaning, are you good to go?
I'll do. I'll leave it to well-meaning to answer.
Okay. I'll just quickly scroll. Apologies if my screen comes off blurry to you. So if you observed, so for the sake of time, I won't want to go into. I think we talked a little bit about it last week. But as a summary, if you observed the arguments that Tinubu and Shettima's lawyer had in their own document regarding 25%, most of it, like I usually tell people, was based on emotional positions, if I will put it like that. Things like, oh, if you do this, you are saying some people are higher than the other, all votes are supposed to be the same. Then, the other part of it was really on, Section 299, where it is referenced that FCT is supposed to be treated as a state. And, for the sake of that, I'll make a quick scroll on the Constitution to Section 299, so people can understand what that provision. I think I'm a little bit fast scrolling. Sorry. So Section 299, which is on the screen now, if you see the way it states it, starting from this place, it said the provision of the Constitution shall apply to the Federal Capital Territory as if it were one of the states, right, of the Federation. And it didn't stop there. So it went further to describe, the grounds for it, if you call it that, for it to be a state. And usually when people read Section 299, they stop at as if it were a state, a state of federation, and they stop there. So what LP's legal team did, right, in the petition, right, and I'm trying to scroll to that. Yeah. So what they did with the petition, as per explaining that part, that's part of the Constitution was, to first go to, and now I'm on the Peter Obi's final written address. So you discover that one of the things they did first was to somewhere on the document, they first explained the rules of interpretation, starting from taking the literal meaning if it's not ambiguous. If it's ambiguous, taking an holistic approach. Then if that is still not, even at that, you should consider that no parts of the Constitution, and you see it here. Let me take my pen so that I can easily mark that point out because it will be crucial. It says that all sections must be read together and purposively so that no section is rendered redundant, right? And then after that, it went on to say, if it still remains ambiguous, you take in the intentions of the makers of the Constitution. Then if it's still ambiguous, then you now begin to consider what was the mischief. So you see this place that I'm trying to mark out now says what the mischief was that the old law did not provide, and the remedy which has been provided for by the new law. So basically, they did all this explanation. Then they went in to start talking about it. And, they rightly agreed that there are cases where FCT should be treated as a state. And, because what Tinubu and Shettima tried doing was to pull out, some kind of judgments to say, there have been a judgment to say this should be treated as a state. But if you see this place that I marked, and they said, although all these cases touch only Section 299 of the Constitution, none of them was interpreted together with Section 134. And that cannot only guide interpretation of the provision. So apparently there's a part of the law really that says you can't, interpret one part in isolation. You always have to interpret it in connection to other parts of the Constitution. So in summary, what LP team did, right? They first assured that they talked about the literal reading of that place, right? And says it's simply meaning that a candidate, I don't want to read everything, so I'm trying to skip. The literal reading of that place means that a winning candidate must obtain 25% in 24 states and in the FCT. So that's literal meaning. But, they went further. So you discover that the lesson says going further. They literally, because I say they tried to look as if they were attempting to. They explained it vividly. And like I said, a couple of people, it was two grounds they used. So the first thing that they used, which was related, so apparently they first defined the literal meaning. Then they came to a point where they said, they came to that point of redundancy, right? And said, if FCT was not important in that statement, and they made reference to, so that particular law as of 1979, if you go to 1979, they will stated it somewhere in this document. As of 1979, the law is, see it here, I just marked it out now. as of 1979, that part was not less than 1/4 of the votes scored, not less than 1/4 of the voters cast at the election in each of 2/3 of the states of the federation. So as of 1999, it stopped at state of the federation, right? And if you want to say FCT is a state, it means you are saying that part that said and the FCT is redundant, right? And redundancy means you are saying it is useless. So LP is saying there is no part of the constitution that can be useless. That the fact that the drafters of the constitution consider the need to include and the FCT means they intended to mean it meant something. To buttress that, they rightly explained that in places where the drafters felt FCT, they didn't need to separate FCT. They would just stop at and the states. And to prove that, they proved it in the constitution. And I'm going to go to the part of the constitution where they prove it. I'm sorry I'm flipping screen, and people will think, I hope it's not confusing, but I just want to explain as much as detail as possible. So they went to that part of the constitution, which is section 134 and all that. So you discover that in the constitution, the bone of contention really is this point that says he has not less than 1/4 of the vote cast of the vote cast at the election, each of at least 2/3 of the states in the federation and the FCT. Remember that I said in 1979, it stopped at states of the federation. It did not include and the FCT. So basically, if that's what the drafters meant it to remain, they wouldn't include and the Federal Capital Territory, right? But to buttress the point that in places where states, it's only states that they want to refer to, they don't want to say FCT, they will state it expressively. See what the lawyers did. They came to just section 3B, where it was talking about the people that would participate in a rerun or a runoff. Look at what this place said, and it's section 3B, subsection 3B rather. It said, can you hear me?
There's 1 million Nigerians still there.
Oh, can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Am I the only one who can hear?
Yeah, we can hear well-meaning. We can hear well-meaning. I think it's only Unelo. Well-meaning, maybe you can proceed.
Yeah, so I'm
is it my network?
Okay, but Nello, can you hear me now?
Proceed. I've muted her. We'll tell her from the back channel. Just proceed.
All right. So what LP team, just remember what I said they did. The first thing was to say, no part can be redundant. Then they came and said, where the constitution requires specifically for FCT to be mentioned, they will mention it. And the point that they used to buttress it is subsection 3B of that same section, where it was said that one of the candidates that will participate in a runoff will be one among the remaining candidates who has a majority of vote cast in the highest number of states. It stopped at states. They didn't include the FCT. So it means the constitution didn't just go sweeping the entire constitution with states and the FCT. So they made that differentiation. But to further buttress it, they went further to say the difference, the reason why they had to amend the constitution and include and the FCT was really what happened between Awolowo and Shehu Shagari. And that now answers that part that I had made reference to earlier, where when we're talking about, how you interpret the constitution. And one of the things I said there was that, you consider the mischief which the old law did not provide, and the remedy which the new one provided for. So basically, the drafters of 1999 wanted to cure the mischief of Awolowo and Shehu Shagari in 1999, and now made it clear this time. So that's what, how, and this is like a summary. If you read the way they did it, you will probably appreciate it more. So Nell, over to you. I don't know if you can hear me now.
Okay, I think Nello dropped off. So when she's back up, I think we'll have to, continue from there. But Nello, are you back up? Please confirm. Nello, can you hear me? All right. Since Nello is not here, we'll just proceed with the conversation. So, Mr. Tony, does anybody up here have any other question to ask on the conversation? If not, we would need to bring some people who are down on the audience. We have Mr. Lumpkins in the audience. We have Mr. Julius. We have Onyedikachi in the audience. Thank you for joining the conversation live. So if we don't have any question for maybe Ngozi, Ankadede, Tony, or anyone, we can just take anybody from below there. Nobody?
No, I
All
don't
right.
have
So
it. Sorry, can I? So please, if you're on YouTube and you like to join the conversation, I sent the link on YouTube, so you can check. There's a link on YouTube, and you can also write your questions, and then we'll read it out here. So thank you so much. You can go ahead.
all right, very quickly, I'll be bringing Mr. Lumpkins up. Mr. Lumpkin, I don't know if you are down in the audience, and please kindly check your screen. I'll be sending you invites so that, or you can raise your hand so that Mr. Julius and Onyedikachi, so that we know that you're ready to speak. Mr. Lumpkins, good evening and welcome to the conversation. Can you unmute your mic? Mr. Lumpkins.
Yeah, Mr. Lumpkins is speaking actually.
Okay, I can't hear him from my end. Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, I can hear you, Mr. Lumpkins. Is there anybody else that can't hear Mr. Lumpkins?
I can hear him too.
Okay, I think it's...
All right, Mr. Lumpkins should just proceed. He should proceed. I think I have to come in here. People on the live cannot even hear Mr. Lumpkins. So I don't really know. If you check out the live, there is nobody that is hearing Mr. Lumpkins. So it is from
Mr. Lumpkins, maybe you drop and come back. Yeah.
So Julius, can we have Julius come up? I don't know if he's ready to speak, and then Mr. Onyedikachi. But if none of them are ready, Nello, are you back here? Nello, are you back? Oh, I think that Nello is not yet back.
So let's see if Mr. Lumpkins people can hear him now. Mr. Lumpkins, are you back now? Miss Maxwell, can you hear him now? I can hear you, but I want to be sure. You, Maxwell, can you hear Mr. Lumpkins?
Okay, no. I can't hear him, and he's also not audible on the live.
I can hear him. If anybody in YouTube can confirm that they can hear him, then we just
He's
go
not
on.
being heard.
Okay.
He's not being heard on the live. He's not being heard on YouTube. So what's going to happen is that Mr. Lumpkins is probably a network problem. Since we are streaming live on YouTube and he cannot be heard, I believe there's other people on YouTube. Or if he has a question, he could probably send his question in.
Your question. So,
all right,
just
then
maybe
he would have to do that.
Then I can re-echo it here. Mr. Lumpkins, quickly go ahead. Mr. Lumpkins, are you there? Yeah, quickly go ahead with your question, then I'll re-echo it for everybody to hear. So your question is if there's any legal way for them to get who? Atiku or Tinubu or... And when you say rerun, so guys, I know you may be hearing only my voice, so I'm talking with Mr. Longkins. I want to be sure of his question, so I'll re-echo it. So when you say rerun, do you mean fresh election or... Okay, I think that's quite clear. So what Mr. Longkins is asking is there any legal way for Tinubu to participate in a fresh election, which really relates to Tinubu being disqualified? I think we've established this, that there is enough grounds for Tinubu to be disqualified. And I mean legal-based ground, not moral-based ground. So we are not saying Tinubu will be disqualified because drug trafficking is bad and legal-based. Just Maxwell just talked about subsection 137 2D or so, or 1D, where the petition is really drug trafficking is really related to. Then there's double nomination. Then when you cross over to PDP side, there is forgery. So if your question is there any way, my answer really would be there's no legal pathway. And I'm usually careful about that answer because we know the country we are living in and we know how far these people can go to do anything. But like I said yesterday, I think on violence space, to do this, they will need to go far. Like, it's not only to take one step, they will need to literally trample on the Constitution. And it's one of the things that some of us curious minds are expecting to see if they can do it. And if they do it, it's really bad for the country. So that's just it. But there's no legal pathway. No, there's no legal pathway. So I don't know if Nello is here now.
Thank you very much, Romy.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Nello, I feel like Nello is having some issues. Nello, try to get the right account, the right link and join in from, or you could go through the normal access, that is bit.ly/1mmc1. So that please, when you join, kindly mute your mic so that we can have a productive conversation. So at this point, I'll move the mic around. We already have Onyedikachi up here, so we'll allow him ask his question. Mr. Onyedikachi, good evening and welcome to the conversation.
Thank you. Good evening. Can we hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Proceed with your question.
All right. Sorry, I'm still going to ask about this disqualification stuff. Like, in every common sense, like, we all know that we are in court to disqualify Tinubu and recover our mandates. Like, what is this rerun stuff? Is rerun something to talk about? Like, rerun no follow now. I don't know how to ask this question, but rerun is not what we are there for. We are there to recover our mandates and disqualify that. We won the election. It's obvious. Everybody to move on. There is nothing like rerun. So why the rerun stuff? I actually want to know why. Because rerun is not an option. We don't want a rerun because they will still read it again. Heimer, we know. So please, Kai Koala.
Sorry, can you guys hear me now?
Yes, Nello, we can hear you. But before we allow you to continue.
I just wanted to come in. Wait, you see, Maxwell, to say that we are derailing from this conversation. I mean, it's very, very easy for us to start going on a tangent and start discussing something, but we are here for a purpose. I don't know where we stopped. We were discussing the 25. I mean, you see, well-meaning you were telling us more about the 25%, in Abuja. Interesting. I like what you have said. And I also understand that, there's a response that is flying around, I don't think our lawyers have gotten that response, but you see, Maxwell, with regards to that response, there was something you said on Mindset Space this morning that, in fact, it made the whole response very, very laughable. And again, I did ask you the question before. I said, when lawyers argue, do they really argue? I mean, I don't know how these things work in the court, but do judges, are judges supposed to be in the dark? Because the way like they were saying that what is required now in Abuja is 1/4 of 2/3 of the votes, which doesn't make any sense, because if I remember, I mean, they were also referring to the Kano situation. I really want you to, just break that whole situation down for us, because I feel like sometimes these guys, they kind of think that Nigerians, maybe it's either one, they think we're not so interested in these things, so they can kind of pull wool over our eyes, or is it that they happen to think that, that they are the only ones of great intellect and the rest of us, they say hook, line, and sinker. So please, can you, come throw more light on that, their response, and, what you actually make out of it? Thank you.
All right. In their response, it's still the same thing. They failed to face the major issues and just went ahead to, facing issues that do not really matter in the conversation. So they try to, avoid all the things that relates to, okay, when you talk about 25%, I'll do that very quickly in 2 minutes, please. When they try to talk about 25%, instead of dealing with the issue of the requirement of 25% in FCT, they stated that you needed to recalculate, meaning that all the votes that are cast in FCT, that you first of all need to divide it to third. You need to divide it into 3 portions. Take 2% or 2 out of the 3. Then after doing that, you will still not divide it again by 1/4 of the votes, which is not the intention of the drafters. The drafter says 1/4 in each of 2/3 of all the states and FCT. What it means is 25% in each of 24 states and the FCT. That is what it's supposed to be. So they try to play around it by, creating another issue for themselves. There is no time that you needed to divide the votes in a state or even in FCT by 2/3. After dividing by 2/3, you still now to come and divide again by 1/4. That was a dangerous calculation to make. So those are my answers to the question. Thank you.
Nello, are you there?
Yes, I am, but I can't hear you say again.
Oh, you didn't hear what
Can
you
you hear
said?
me?
Like all.
No, at some point I couldn't hear him anymore. So I decided to see if I can hear on my laptop, this whole thing. I don't understand. But can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Thank you. Hello.
Okay. Can anyone hear me?
Yes, Nello, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Me, I can hear you.
Okay. Lamin, can you hear me?
Yes, Nello, I can.
Nello, if you can hear me, go ahead and ask your question. And well-meaning will repeat it. Or
Yes.
say what, because some people can't hear you. But well-meaning can hear you and he can repeat what you have said.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I honestly did not hear UC Maxwell. I don't know if he's still here, but I heard him on Mindset Space this morning, and essentially he did say something about the 2/3 is 2/3 of states, not 2/3 of the votes casted. So these guys, they try to.
Nello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Let me try to explain. Since you didn't hear UC Maxwell, what
Okay.
UC Maxwell
All right. Yeah. So it's 1/4 of 2/3 of states, not 2/3 of the votes counted. So again, I don't know what type of game this Olanipekun thinks he's playing, and this is why I asked the question earlier, where I said, does he actually think that a lot of Nigerians that we are fools, or is it that they take a lot? I don't like it. Just doesn't make any sense to me. But anyway, we're gonna keep the conversation going. Someone did.
Let me throw more light on this, like from what UC Maxwell said. So people will get this. So first of all, this particular response that we're talking about is not officially out. Personally, I'm really hoping they really submitted that one. That would be so good. So people may not understand what what that lawyer was trying to do, but I know what he was trying to do. But it's just so funny that it will be so bad for them, to be honest. So in 1979, in the election between Shehu Shagari and Awolowo, that they are trying to make reference to what the Supreme Court judge, and I explained this earlier that in 1979 the law was okay. The person needed to get 25% in 2/3 of the states of the federation, and people should understand it. As of then, the states of the federation was 19 states. 2/3 of 19 states is 12.6 something, which means 12 and 2/3, not exactly 13. So what they did in 1979 in court, which didn't make sense because everybody thought that, okay, since it's 2/3 of, that everybody thought that 2/3 really meant approximately 13, right? So what the INEC of that time did, and the court eventually agreed to it, but before agreeing, they said that law was clumsy. In the sense that they said that the law did not make sense, right? Which is why when I read earlier LP's difference on 25%, you will see the difference between why the old law did not make sense and why they had to reshaping the new law and separate and the FCT. So that would first of all, so I think that's their reply will be a support to the argument instead of a backfire. But see, the funny thing is that when they defined that law, then Kanu was not the federal capital, right? Shehu Shagari in that election got 25% in 12 states. But in Kanu, he didn't get it in 13 states. And Awolowo took him to court and said he needed it in 13 states. No states were differentiated. All states were included. No, and the FCT. And when they went to court, and the rationale that, Shehu Shagari or, the INEC used to say, what they did was 2/3 of the votes in the 13 states in Kanu, which, if by the time you do 2/3 of the votes that they have there, and you now take 25% of that 2/3 of that vote, it would get 25% that is required. And the court agreed that the law was clumsy, but acceded to that argument. Now, why it is we are on YouTube, so I don't want to curse. Why it doesn't make sense for the current lawyers to use it is very clear. So first of all, the law said 2/3 of the states of the federation and the FCT. If they are saying that simply means, if they were saying that simply means 2/3 of 24 states and 2/3 of one other state, it would have probably made sense. Now they are taking it as 2/3 of the FCT, which simply doesn't make sense. Because if they want to apply that 2/3 rule, they will have to apply it to the 36 states and the FCT. And in that case, people where you get 25% become many. So if you think about it deeply, it's because this is like a timed, program, and I can't analyze it more deeply. If you analyze it more deeply, you discover that it's actually and I'm not saying funny as a condescending manner. I mean mathematically and logically. If you even think about it, especially if you go and read the Kano State thing and now, or rather 1979 thing and now, you know it's actually a funny thing, and it will just be too much more that if the judges are even biased, we just think what's going on? Like, this is so confusing from you, to be honest. So that's just it.
All right. Thank you so much, Well-Meaning. Can you guys hear me now? I've had to turn off my Wi-Fi. Okay, so hopefully it's better from this point on. All right. We have people coming in. We have Julius. Julius, do you have a question to ask? Please unmute your mic and go. And guys in the audience, if you would like to ask a question, you can. Because there's a link that 1MMC shared. You can click that link, we'll accept you so you can ask questions, or you can just ask your question on the comment section. Somebody asked, independent vocalization said, can the justices be sued if they miscarry justice? Please hold your thought on that question while we hear from Julius 28. Please unmute your mic. In you, Niger, kindly mute your mic, please, when you come on stage, just like we do on. Yes, I can hear you.
Sorry, Julius. So this is not space, so it's not submissions. It's more like if you have questions. So we don't. It's timed, and I think we have less than 20 minutes to go. So.
Yeah, exactly. And don't forget, guys, we still have the 1mm space daily, so we can have that one, to share thoughts and all of that. But anyway, just a quick one on your question, even though it's not related. But at the end of the day, we would our own job is to bombard the justices with evidence and convincing arguments, and then if they would rule otherwise, let's see what and how. I mean, I want to see why these guys will not disqualify Tinubu. These are some of the things that they would have to give us a very cogent reason why they would not disqualify him in the light of all the evidences that has been thrown at them. All right, please mute your mic. And we have another speaker here. We have a new Niger. A new Niger, please, I hope you have a question for us. Please unmute your mic and ask your question.
Nello, that was my question that I put on YouTube already. That question about...
A new Niger, unmute your mic.
Nello, can you hear me? I can hear her.
Okay, I can hear you.
She said that was a question that she put on YouTube. So I want to believe she's the one that said, a new Niger, were you the one that said, can the justices be sued?
Yes, that's it. Because, I mean, there's so much. I read the address and it's just overwhelming. They would have to be blind to not disqualify Tinubu and give it to Peter Obi and give the mandate back to Peter Obi.
All right, so a new Niger's question, like I think Nello already read it out. If the justices can be sued, I'll just quickly say, so the way there's a body that normally penalizes, or rather addresses the misconduct of justices, right, of judges rather, and that's the NJC. So the NJC is currently part of the corrupt structure. So I mean, to be honest, I'm not even looking forward to. Let's allow them, like, it's okay if they do the wrong thing. After all, we know we can sue them. They can't, even if they can be sued by then, it won't be, like I always say on Spaces, Tinubu is willing to, anybody can, if you notice at some point in the hearing, they wanted to find a way to switch the conversation in such a way that the LP lawyers will go after INEC staff. That states where they wanted to change the conversation to look like, oh, they did not provide the materials, go and sue the state where jail them, can jail them, so that we'll leave that. So, and what would happen is that, they would rather that than, give the mandate. So that's why it's important to focus. But just to also quickly make reference to what the last speaker said, Julius, I would really appreciate if you know me on Twitter, so on my DM, my DM is open. Just share some tweets of Festus Keyamo to me that you feel are very, confident. Because when you said that, I was kind of shocked. I was like, am I on social media? Like, if anybody that knows how to read body language, right? If you have half that is, you don't even need to be a mind reader. You will tell that, and I say this every time, APC is more scared than us. APC is more concerned. Today, they had to release a document to, go after PDP and call it blackmail and all that. So I don't know how that sounds as confident, but so I'll give you the benefit of doubt. Maybe there is something exceptional you saw that, this sounded like, oh, this person is so confident. Please share that tweet with me, and I'd really want to see it. Nelo, please go ahead.
All right. Thank you, Walmini. The thing is, if you don't understand the modus operandi of the APC, you would think that all this, they are grandstanding. You would confuse it for confidence. This is who they are. These guys are lawless. They operate with impunity, and they are very uncouth, even in their language. What serious government releases press, this press release is from the presidency, and they use such degrading, language. So this is just the APCs. It has nothing to do with confidence or whatever, Anyway, the truth is that we are here in this country. This country belongs to all of us, belongs to everyone. There's no one that is more Nigerian than the other. And again, we have laid all the evidences before the justices. The rest will be up to them, And if they don't give justice, just like our lawyers said in their address, that any country that truncates the rule of law, invites anarchy, and it's just as simple as that. All right, moving on. We were discussing, I've noticed that, there's been so much analysis of the second and third respondents' address, that's Tinubu and Shetima's address, but we haven't really shed light on INEC's address. And personally, for me, I think that INEC, we really need to, beam our touchlights on INEC, because whether we like it or not, those guys, they play a huge role. And if I see, holding them by the jugular as important as also, making sure that Tinubu is disqualified. So 1 Minute Nigeria, I know you've read that address. I would like you to, use part of our remaining time to just quickly highlight INEC's response to our petition for everyone. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Nelo. So I'm sharing my screen. Okay, I can see it's up. So it's really a summary. Nelo is right. So what happened was, bulk, and rightly so, bulk of the if you even follow the hearing, right, and if you are someone that is very observant of the room, you don't just look at what is said. You observe how it is said, how the body language really. You know that throughout the hearing, even within the respondents, Olanipekun was seen as a senior person. So I think I see Olanipekun as someone like that could, in real life, and I may be wrong, I'm sorry if I'm wrong, in real life would really portray a bully, like someone that people would have to fear and all that. So why I'm saying that is because if you follow the hearing, you discover that the body language of the other respondent, Elofabemi is his son. Maybe Olanipekun is older than him as his son, understandably so. But you discover that Elofabemi would come off, and Elofabemi was the lawyer for APC as a respondent, would come up as a subordinate. So it was almost as if within APC and Tinubu, all their respondents, they had a meeting and say, okay, Elofabemi, you are representing APC officially, I'm representing Tinubu officially, but together I'm your senior, so you follow my lead. So that's really what happened in the hearing. And I'm saying this so that you understand that the real reason why there was a lot of technical focus on Tinubu's response is because that's where everybody leaned towards, even INEC. So, but if you also follow the hearing, you discover that towards the end of the hearing, INEC's body language started INEC started off as 100% on the side of the respondent, and I mean 100%. In fact, they were more on the side of the respondents than the respondents themselves. So they were defending Tinubu more than Tinubu was defending himself. But if you can imagine a scale of 0 to 100 in your mind, like just imagine it, towards the end of the year, and this is not any benefit of doubt to INEC, I think INEC discovered that, okay, our body language is becoming too much. Whether it was a discovery or it was something that they were told, I don't know, to be honest. And they started moving out of that 100%. And maybe they couldn't move, of course, they were still biased. So they moved towards like 80%. So towards the end of the year, we discovered that they sounded a little bit less interested. They didn't cross-examine witnesses. They just, they didn't even object to everything that the other people objected to again. They were just, as if they really lost interest. But that also reflected to an extent in their, so that's why some people that read their response will probably tell you that, INEC sounded as if they were neutral in their response. And that's really because you are seeing relative neutrality, right? Compared to, so if someone that was on 100 before comes to even 99, from 100, you have gone to -1. So that's why I call it relative. But it doesn't mean it's now in zero neutrality. That means not totally neutral. So summary of what INEC did, right, in the petition, I'll say maybe 3-4 statements to qualify it. First, and it's really, I don't think it's my personal opinion, it's out of what I read. The first is that INEC really established or agreed with the fact that election results were not transmitted, right? And I would try to point that out. I wanted to point that out, but I don't know if I would be able to fish it out. Where I marked that is not that point. I'll use that to talk about something else. So they agreed that, they didn't transmit results. They agreed that, the other result transmitted, but they didn't transmit for the sake of, they called it a technical glitch and all that. And so that's the first thing. So INEC admitted. So every attempt by Olani Pekun and whatsoever to try to make it look as if the non-transmission is alleged, or there was partial transmission, or there was whatever, that is totally squashed, right? So INEC somewhat agreed in their body language of the entire text. The second thing was that twice Peter Obi, so this was a reply to Peter Obi. So you will discover that they kind of tried sounding like, okay, another thing, like I was saying, if you see this part that I marked, they agree that the B verse, I marked it here, was designed to accredit voters, capture the image of polling unit results and all that. So they even went on to say, on election day, the transmission to the portal, which happened smoothly. So this INEC saying it, they agree that it happened smoothly. Let me take my marker and mark it. It happened smoothly for the National Assembly did not happen. So INEC agreed that did not happen. So that was check. So the only thing they tried doing with Peter Obi was that, that Peter Obi said he won. But if you look at the way he did his petition was more targeted towards INEC. So Peter Obi is trying to say he did no longer try to prove that he won, but he was trying to prove that INEC did not do the right thing. And for me, I just felt like that was the last cry of a drowning horse. That's another thing that he did throughout. I may not be able to point out specific points to do that. The third thing that they did tremendously, which I think I mentioned to the Mohammed Nomad Crew team, is that they lied a lot in the document. And I said it's a lie because I would have said it's a typographical error. But it was a lie. It was a lie. And why I was happy was that some of the lies were contradicted by the other respondents. So one of the lies that INEC did, which is the place I marked here. So INEC said that the first respondents pleaded that the fourth respondent, which is Shettima, by letter dated 6 July. So this was related. So INEC was trying to defend Shettima's double nomination, literally. By letter dated 6 July 2022, received on 13th day of July 2022, before the voluntary withdrawal of brought the voluntary withdrawal of nomination, blah, 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 and before he was subsequently nominated on the 14th of July. So INEC was saying that APC wrote the letter on the 6th of July. We received it on the 13th of July, and it was nominated on the 14th. So he didn't have double nomination, right? But that was funny, and that's why I said they lied. Because INEC's form EC11 or about EC11C, which is what Peter Obi tendered in court, clearly stated that INEC, Shettima signed his withdrawal on INEC, as in signed his withdrawal on the 15th, one day after he was nominated for vice presidency. So LP tendered a document that showed that Shettima was nominated for vice presidency on the 14th. Then he withdrew from Senate on the 15th. INEC document. One would have said maybe INEC is trying to play a funny game, because I know how obedience thing. They'll be like, oh, and the fact that they put it here, it means they are trying to play a funny game. They don't have any funny game to play. And do you know why? It's because they can't even run from it. Somewhere in, I really hope I can see it. Somewhere in Olani Pekun's written address, right? For Shettima, Olani Pekun agreed somewhere, and I'm trying to really fish it out so people can get it. So they agreed that what happened on that it was 15th that INEC got it, but their own argument was just that what happened on that day. Okay, I actually marked it. See it here. So after arguing that Shettima wrote the letter on the 6th, they are like, oh, he wrote the letter. It doesn't matter when INEC got it. So they were like, as far as he has written the letter and given to the party, that's all he needed to do. It doesn't matter whether the party tendered it to INEC, that's left to the party. INEC was not trying to say, oh, it came on the 13th. But on the contrary, listening to what Olani Pekun said, Olani Pekun, after defending, said, and this is, if you can see my screen, it's really highlighted, said, the foregoing clearly demonstrates, he had argued that, letter received. He now said the foregoing clearly demonstrates that a complete withdrawal is achieved once the submission of the notice is written by the resigning candidate. So he's saying once the letter is written by the candidate, he has withdrawn. It doesn't matter when INEC receive it. With this understanding, we respectfully submit that contrary to the suggestions of the petitioners, that through their petition, what took place on the 15th of July as shown on INEC from EC11C. So, even Olani Pekun already said that INEC from EC11C shows it that Shettima withdrew on the 15th from INEC. So, as of 15th, which is what LP lawyer said, basically, as of 14th, the question now is, as of 14th, when Shettima was nominated as vice presidential candidate, he was still in the database of INEC, technically, formally, logically, as a senatorial candidate. That's the question. And if you're in the database of INEC for two positions, you have successfully gotten double nomination. So I really don't understand why INEC in their own wanted to now start lying that it was 13th. If you go through the document, when I read the documents, when I skimmed through it, I was literally marking out lies to be on, and I can't go. Another lie that they said was that, what they call now, the witness from AWS said that she was representing AWS. I really wish I can fish it out of the document, but because of time, I will not be able to do that. So that's why I said I don't know if it's a typographical error, but it's funny because contrary, APC in their own statement said the contrary. So I don't know, but that's really just it. So I know it's because of time.
All right. Thank you so much, Well-Meaning. But is there any backing to Olani Pekun's claim that you can say you withdrew, you can get the letter to INEC on the 15th or something about 3 months after? Is there any law backing that his arguments? Because I didn't really, when you were scrolling down, I saw that.
Okay, let me try to back it up with the law. So this is INEC's this is the Electoral Act, right? And clearly written on it is how a candidate should withdraw. Sorry, I'm scrolling too fast. Is it 33 or just pardon me? Is this the electoral? Okay. Sorry, I'm on the part of the drafting. So, I just want to show us INEC standard or the Electoral Act standard of withdrawal, right? And see what Oladipeku was trying to. I said it on Space that what they tried doing a lot of the time. It's not this portion. Just give me a moment. I think I can do a search of withdrawal.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, you can go on. So when I get it, I'll just.
Yes, we're going to give you time to find out. And guys, we're going to be ending the space soon. Someone asked a question. I don't know if any other person here has unfortunately, UC has had to leave us to go and, start his own space. If not, he would have taken this question. John Amuda asked, did the petitioners respond to the membership?
Sorry,
okay.
I've seen it. So let me just, this is section 31, so I was mistaken for 33. So what this section says, if you see, let me take my pen. It talks about withdrawal of a candidate. Now, so what the section says about a candidate will withdraw, right? It says, I don't know if people can see my screen. Is the writing too small? Let me try to zoom in a little bit more.
You can increase the font.
Yeah.
Yes, okay, now.
So it says a candidate may withdraw his or her candidature by notice in writing signed by him and delivered personally by the candidate to the political party that nominated him for the election. So Oladipeku will typically take only this part and say, okay, what a candidate needs to do to withdraw is write a letter signed by him and deliver it to the party, right? But the funny thing is that's not where the law stops. It goes further and say, and the party shall convey such withdrawal to the commission not later than 90 days to the election. So, simply put, the withdrawal of a candidate doesn't stop when the candidate writes a letter to the party. It stops when the party has conveyed it to INEC. And the party conveyed it to INEC formally from INEC's document on the 15th, after he has been nominated as president. Right, like Uncle Akadi said. APC is just only used to not doing things the right way. So they don't even read the law before they do things. So what have actually happened to them is that these are little things that they could have bypassed. Right? But because they don't read the law, in their mind, we can do it, nobody will notice, we can do and undo. So they didn't read it. And they made all these multiple blunders. Go ahead, Nelo.
Yeah, I thought you were driving at something when you said, and the political party shall convey such withdrawal to the commission not later than 90 days to the election. So did they do it later than 90 days to the election?
No, the question is not about the 90 days to the election. So the question is really, when did they do it? It's not, how will I put it now? So LP's case is not whether they did it 90 days. That's another total issue entirely. And they did it before 90 days, so that's not a problem. What they did was that Shettima wrote his letter of withdrawal on the 6th of July, according to him, which he probably never really wrote anything. He was nominated for vice president on the 14th of July. Maybe it was after they nominated him, they remember that, you are a senator, have you withdrawn your senatorial this thing? And you say, oh, sorry, I forgot. And they went on the 15th of July. So for at least 24 hours, Shettima was a vice presidential candidate and a senatorial candidate for at least 24 hours. So on the 15th of July, they went to INEC and said, oh, we only came here yesterday. I'm saying like this so people get a picture in their mind. We only came here yesterday to say he's our vice presidential candidate. We did not remove the other one. Please bring it. Let us remove it. And they now brought the form. And of course, because they felt like it was not necessary, they wrote the real date. Or maybe God was just trying to punish them. They wrote the real date. Maybe INEC could have colluded with them to say, since you have joined it late, please write on the 13th too. But no, they wrote on the 15th. The real date that they came to withdraw it. So for at least 24 hours, Shettima had double nomination. And you can't have double nomination in an election. But what Oladipeku wanted to use to defend it was that Shettima, because Shettima wrote the letter on the 6th, he has already withdrawn. That is why I brought this part to say, withdrawal of candidacy does not stop from when you write the letter and give it to your party. From what Oladipeku is saying, it actually stops at the point where that letter is conveyed. Shall is not And if you follow what law said, and the political party shall convey such withdrawal to the commission, whether when they will communicate it is just a point where I say, okay, not less than 90 days, but it stops when they communicate it. So the question is, did they communicate it in less than 90 days? It's not later than 90 days. Yes, they communicated it. But did they communicate it before he was vice president? No. So it was vice president and senatorial candidate at the same time. And that's where the case is. But Lani Pekun usually we like to stop.
Okay, well, meaning, just for clarification, can they not claim that they have already communicated it to the political party, and then the political party will now take its time, which is not later than 90 days, to communicate it now to INEC? Is that not an argument?
Okay, I like your probing. See, so this is not a party constitution, right? This document is not party constitution. So it's not a thing where the party can decide when they communicate it or not. So typically, if Shettima was withdrawing and not wanting to be vice president, right? Maybe he just want to withdraw from senatorial, being a senator. What would have been the case is that the party can communicate it anytime. So I think that's where the point is being missed here. It's not about when the party communicated not being in relation to 90 days. So if Shettima just wanted to withdraw and go to his house, not being vice presidential candidate, he can write the letter on the 6th and the party can communicate it probably even in August if it's within 90 days. No problem. But Shettima wanted to withdraw his candidacy to become vice presidential candidate. And you can't hold two nominations at the same time. So he withdrew. He was made vice presidential candidate on the 14th and went to withdraw his senatorial on the 15th, a day after. So at a time,
okay, I get you now. I get you now. So the party should have made this known to the to INEC before he can take up another position.
Exactly. So whether the party does it or not, right? And the funny thing is that APC did not bother to try to defend why they didn't do it. So even if Olani Pekun wanted to pass the ball to somebody else, he's actually passing it to APC, right? And APC is the party that's feeding to them. So at the end of the day, whether it's APC they disqualified or whether it's Shettima they disqualified or so somebody shall be disqualified for double nomination.
Can you throw more light on that APM's angle? Because I know that APM is also coming with another strong angle. Do you understand their angle?
Yeah, I do. But I don't. So, okay, APM's angle is still based on the Electoral Act. And so I think Section 34 of the Electoral Act, right? Is it 34 now? So there's a part of the Electoral Act that says that after you submitted, so the reason why both Peter Obi and Tinubu nominated a placeholder candidate when they were not sure of who they wanted to make vice president yet was because by INEC's guideline, they needed to do that at a particular point. So there's a part of the Electoral Act, right, where that simply says, I mean, I can find
number 33. Check number 33. Political parties changing candidates.
Okay, thank you very much, Ngozi. See, Section 33 of the Electoral Act says that a political party shall not be allowed to change or substitute its candidate whose name has been submitted under Section 29. If you want me to scroll to Section 29, I'll scroll briefly to Section 29. And you see that what Section 29 says is that every political party shall, not later than 180 days before the date appointed for general election, submit to the commission the list of the candidates that the party proposes to sponsor at the election. So every political party needed to submit a list of all their candidates. And because there is a loophole for you to substitute candidates, right? A lot of parties can take advantage of it. It's a loophole, but it's not really a problem. It's not really supposed to be a problem. So what this Section 33 says is that you cannot withdraw or change. You are not allowed to change or substitute a candidate after you've submitted his name that first time. So after Peter Obi submitted Doyi Okupe, after APC submitted Masari, you can't change their name. And he gave a condition. He said, except in the case of death or withdrawal by the candidate. In the case of death or withdrawal by the candidate. In this case, Doyin Okupe did not die, Masari did not die. Both of them withdrew their candidacy. Doyin Okupe, and I'm making reference to Peter Obi, because a lot of people will say, oh, but it's similar to what Peter Obi did. Doyin Okupe withdrew his nomination as vice presidential candidate on the 7th of July. Peter Obi nominated Dati Baba Ahmed literally on the 8th. Or the news came out on the 8th. So they swapped it between 7th and 8th, right? So there was no point where Peter Obi did not have a vice president. So it was, Doyin Okupe went and said, I withdraw. Peter Obi went and said, I make you vice presidential candidate. Look at what Peter Obi did. And I continue with it. I said, provided that in the case of such withdrawal or death, the political party political party affected shall within 14 days of the occurrence of the event conduct hold a fresh election. And this is where confuse some people and say, oh, because a fresh election, it means only a candidate. No. You used to actually have demolished this before. If you go to this electoral, the candidate is someone that is party feed. So if you even look at section 29, what section 29 said all their candidates, it didn't say the ones that were elected by primaries. So what this place is saying is that within 14 days, if it is a candidate that requires primary, you conduct a new primary and submit a candidate to the commission. That's a replacement to the commission within 14 days. Take note of within 14 days. So, and this part where they included conduct fresh primaries is because if a primary is required, you do that. INEC does not give parties out because, it's possible that a political party can decide tomorrow to say, our party constitution, we will do primary to elect vice presidential candidate. So if you need it in your party constitution, go ahead and do your primary, but shall submit it to INEC within less than 14 days. But do you know what Masari did or what APC did? Masari withdrew his candidacy on the 24th of June. 24th of June. And APC nominated Shetima on the 14th of July. From 24th of June to 14th of July is about 21 days, not 14 days. So they exceeded the 14 days period before they brought a replacement for Masari. And what APM is saying, if you go, I'll flip now to the Constitution. If you go to the Constitution from what APM is saying, APM is making reference to Section 142 of the Constitution, where I was just now with the electoral for the sake of our listener. Of the Constitution, look at what Section 142 says. It said, in any election to which the foregoing provision of this part, blah, blah, a candidate for an election to the office of president shall not be deemed to be validly nominated unless he nominates another candidate as his associate from the same political party. So it is saying, if you do not have a vice presidential, if you do not nominate a vice presidential candidate, at least within the time that you are supposed to, basically, which INEC has given, your nomination as a candidate of a party is deemed to be is not deemed to be valid. Do you understand? And the point is that INEC, who is meant to control how you nominate vice president, is INEC and all that. Not INEC now, it's the Electoral Act. So the Electoral Act said, okay, you can't change the candidate, but maybe in the case of the candidate withdrawal, because you can't force somebody to contest, you can't, and the person may even die. Maybe in the case of a candidate withdrawal, you are free to bring a replacement. But bringing this replacement, you must do it within 14 days. It doesn't mean you have the entire lifetime to do it. Do it within 14 days, right?
Yes.
And instead of doing it within, so the point is that if you cross the 14 days that INEC has given you, you have put yourself in this not deemed to be validly nominated. So for 6 days, Tinubu technically did not have a vice presidential candidate. He went outside the grace period of INEC to nominate a replacement. Nello, do you know the dangers of if the court upholds this? The danger is so grave because the danger will mean that if I want to contest for deputy for governorship, I can nominate you, Nello, as the deputy governor, right? But you are not the real person I want to make deputy governor. And after I nominate you, I submit your name to INEC today. Tomorrow I tell you withdraw it, and you withdraw it, right? I can go back home and sleep and stay and be thinking I can think till election day to say, I still not had the deputy governor candidate. But, so if the court is saying 21 days is okay, it means they can also say 6 months is okay. In fact, even if you don't have a deputy governorship candidate after the election, it's okay. Because you before and it withdrew. That is the danger.
Yeah.
So it's very great.
Yeah. All right. Very interesting. How we're going to see if the court is going to throw out, our constitution and our electoral act for one man. It's very interesting. All right, guys. We have some people on stage. We have. Oh, I thought we had someone. Ngozi?
Yeah.
Yes.
A new Ninja is up on stage. A new Ninja, are you ready to speak?
Okay. I can see some people asking. There's Ike and there's Pamodulus.
Yeah, I sent them a request.
Wait, Eni Nigeria has asked a question already. She was the one that asked if the judges can be sued.
Aha, okay. So
all right. So okay, and someone Peju said, I like this presentation. You can see the documents as one MMC is reading. It is good for visual learners. Thank you so much, Peju. We appreciate that. All right. In the absence of anybody requesting or asking any question, I think I will just allow our speakers here to give their last word and then we can end the show for today. Is everyone in agreement?
Yeah.
All right. Ngozi, let's start with you then. Yeah. Ngozi.
Oh, okay. Yeah. It was nice and productive show. Yeah. I enjoyed every bit of it. The most important thing is that Tinubu has to be disqualified, and Tinubu must never contest any election in his life. That's if he's alive to ever contest again. Well, anyway, thanks everyone. So we'll have this on podcast, so you can share with a friend that wasn't here or couldn't listen, or they can listen to us on YouTube. So you'll have it on podcast, Spotify, Apple, and some other podcasts. So that's it for me.
All right. Thank you so much. Tinubu must be disqualified. All right. Anka Dede, over to you.
Oh, all I just have to say is thank you. I think we made so much progress. We had a lot of people listening in. Sorry for the glitches. I don't want to use the word glitches. Sorry for the, what was the other word? I forgot. Okay. Well, let's call it
technical glitch. Not INEX type,
I had another word for it. I didn't want to call it a glitch so that these people will not, take undue advantage of words. But that said, I just want to thank everybody for joining us. The chat area was more interesting today. And yes, we can take advantage of that. And Peju, thank you so much. I think it's a good plus, having the visual effect as we have the discussions going on. And I also want to apologize to Ike and Pamodulus. They were not able to come up to space to ask their questions, but maybe next time, it will be more seamless. Thank you all for joining us. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you so much. Tony.
All right, Nello. Thank you so very much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us on this session again. Yes, we had a few bumps here and there, but I hope you've had a good time listening and getting some more information as we move forward. I would like to thank Well-Meaning Nigeria, our lawyer in the making, for that elaborative and educative session on all the sections of the law. And on behalf of the 1 Million Man March crew, I thank you once again. The conversation continues within the week on our Twitter space. And as Ngozi already said, Tinubu must be disqualified. And not only that, Mahmoud must go to jail. He cannot spend 360 billion taxpayers' money for this rubbish. For now, I wish you a happy evening. Thank you very much. Back to you, Nello.
Amen. I agree. 1 minute, please, in 1 minute or two, if you can, before you now give your ending submission. A double Christian is saying, please, what about Peter Obi's membership register? I think, when these guys, they wrote their reports, that stuff they had about Peter Obi, I believe we've already trashed this. Maybe I should even just answer you. You know, that stuff about Peter Obi's not being a member 30 days to when INEC submitted their register, you know. Anyway, 1 minute, go ahead and just answer him. Please keep it brief and then also give us your submission.
I think if you read the written address, it was trashed, to be honest. It's one of those things that you can regard as the last cry of a dying horse. I don't know if I'm correct. So it was trashed. First of all, there's already an appeal court ruling on it, which was not appealed maybe to the Supreme Court back then. So the court has already established it back before the election. I haven't forgotten to took it to court. I think it was 8 p.m. or so. I can't remember. So the court established it that Peter Obi is the member. Then even the part of the electoral that they are making reference to does not stop a party from admitting members after you submit your list. And I think we've said this so many times on the space, so let me not go to. So basically, it's a non-issue. Let me use the word of Sam Levy. It's a non-issue. As my final, statement, Nello, when we had like a session to talk about this earlier, you asked me if, what part stood out for me, and my answer was that, I can't really point a part that stood out for me. Because every part, but because we talk so much about the drug case and, every other thing, I want to point out just one part that, every time I look at this document, I see. So one thing that I even got to realize or learn from the document is that sometimes the Supreme Court had already given that the INEC training manual for electoral officer, right? Look at this part that I marked out. It said that is not a mere instruction or direction, rather, that there are subsidiary legislation that have the force of law. So which means the Supreme Court said that INEC training manual has the force of law. That means it's a law in itself. Now I'll go to what INEC training manual said about technology in the election. And this was added in both Peter Obi's petition, added in both Peter Obi's written address and PDP, because I was reading PDP's written address before this show started, was added. Look at what INEC wrote in that training manual. INEC said, one of the problems noticed in the electoral process is the irregularities that take place between the polling units after the announcement of results and the point of collation. Sometimes results are hijacked, blah, 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 blah. It becomes necessary to apply technology to transmit the data from the polling unit so that the results are collated from the point of result declaration. So point being made is that INEC on their own stated why they thought about beavers and other technology. So there is absolutely nothing that anybody can say or do to say this is it. Then finally, I usually end with this. I won't read it, but it is the last part of our. Please, even if you don't read Peter Obi's written address, maybe you feel like, we've explained it enough, you don't want to read it. I would advise everybody, go and read the last paragraph where they made reference to Kenya. Just go and read it. Read it like a poem, and you would understand that after the judges may have read it, if they got to this point and they read this part where the Kenyan judges said that they were going to refuse, it said, let me just read that last part. It said, to dishonestly exercise that delegate power and close our eyes to constitutional violations would be a dereliction of duty, and we refuse to accept that invitation to do so. And they went for that to say, therefore, however burdensome. So when I read it like the judges are reading it. Like lawyers are saying, however burdensome, no matter the bribe you get, no matter whatever you have been given, let the majesty of the Constitution reverberate. I don't want to read all that, but the point is that read this, and I'll just tell you that if the judges read this...
meaning you have to read it, absolutely. Let the majesty of the Constitution reverberate across the length and breadth of our motherland. Let it bubble from our rivers and oceans. It's sweet.
On screen.
I understand why you say it.
Let me read it.
It's okay. Let everybody go and read this because we have to go by 6.
But my point is that if the judges read this part and they still give the wrong judgment, you will understand why I say if the judges give the wrong judgment in this case, Nigeria is gone. Gone.
Gone. gone. Subsidies gone. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to the 1MMC Sunday show. It's always nice to just come together and, talk about the happenings of the week. Obviously, this week we are focused on the addresses because they are like the major things that has happened. But subsequently, we'll also be looking at happenings around the political scenes. And some of our members are very interested in our House of Rep members. So we are also going to be looking at what is going on in that chambers and also discussing them. And also seeing how we can invite some of our, Labour Party House of Rep members, to come and tell us how they are getting on, with the other guys in those chambers. All right. So thank you so much, guys. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you again next week, same time. Apologies. We started a bit late today. We had some glitches, but it's a work in progress. We keep seeking for better means to better broadcast.
We had some challenges.
It was a bug. It was a bug.
It looks like INEC don't ruin that word glitch for us. So challenges. Okay, guys, thank you so much. Have a lovely Sunday, and we'll see you again same time, 4 to 5 next week.